你最近国语真的有进步很多哈。
谢谢你。
真的有吗？
我觉得有一点点。
有一点点啊。
你知道吗？我小时候，
我真的不知道。你今天不说，我真的不知道。
真的吗？
真的。
Hello, 大家好, I'm Grace from Grace Mandarin Chinese. In this video, we're going to talk about common features that Cantonese speakers have when speaking Mandarin. And I'm going to focus on their pronunciations so you can get used to listening to their accents. And if you are a Cantonese speaker, this video can help you improve your Mandarin pronunciation. 那我们现在开始吧。First, let's talk about the pronunciation differences in the initial sounds in characters. The first one is mixing up zh, ch, sh, z, c, s, and ji, qi, xi. Unlike in Mandarin, these three groups of sounds are just one group in Cantonese, so they often mix it up when speaking Mandarin. And here are some common patterns when Cantonese speakers pronounce these sounds. Pronouncing z like ji. For example, Cantonese speakers might pronounce 自己 like 自己。
我自己，我自己，
为自己拍一张，为自己拍一张。
Another example is pronouncing 在 as 在. Listen again. 在 I know this sounds pretty similar, but these kinds of details distinguish the Cantonese accent from Mandarin.
我现在在努力学，现在在。
If you're pronouncing z with a g sound, this is how you can fix it. Relax the middle of your tongue, which means lower it and move it away from the roof of your mouth. Also, make sure that the front part of your tongue is right behind your upper front teeth to make the z sound. Let's practice. Z, z, z. So remember to relax the middle of your tongue, don't raise it. The next one is pronouncing zh, ch, sh like z, c, s, or ji, qi, xi. Since Cantonese doesn't have zh, ch, sh, Cantonese speakers pronounce these sounds similar to z, c, s, or ji, qi, xi. For example, you might hear 知道 pronounced as 知道.
如果有看我的综艺的节目，都知道我对煮菜，都知道我。
是 is pronounced like 是。
公园是你的名字是不是？是啊，阿叶苗，是啊，阿叶苗。
还有就是一个，还有就是一个。
是 might also be pronounced like 是。
它可能是。
If you want to learn how to correctly pronounce these three groups of sounds, I've made some videos on them. You can find them through the link in the description below. The last one on initials is pronouncing n like l. For example, ni might be pronounced as li.
谢谢你。
真的有吗？
谢谢你。
下次看到我，用你任何的方法。 用你任何的方法。
努力 might be pronounced as 努力。
我现在在努力学，在努力学。
能 sounds like 能。
同样多的油量，却能比以前跑得更远，却能比以前跑得更远。
年 sounds like 年。
新的一年哦，健康发大财。新的一年哦，
可以的，下一年吧。
你看他，
下一年吧。
Now let's move on to the differences in the final sounds in characters. The first one is pronouncing o as o. When pronouncing the Mandarin o, Cantonese speakers often pronounce it as o. For example, 我 might be pronounced as 我。
他现在想学我，都挺忙的。我今天 做影嘅時候我都挺忙的，我今天我
老婆 sounds like 老婆。
我老婆的哥哥的兒子，老婆的哥。
The difference between these two sounds is that the tongue position of the Mandarin O is higher than the Cantonese A. To pronounce the Mandarin O correctly, you just need to raise the back of your tongue a little bit more. Then you will get the Mandarin O sound. A, O, O. The second one is omitting the medials. I, U, Yu. In Mandarin, if I, U, Yu is in the middle of a consonant and vowel, we call them 介音 medials. Sometimes Cantonese speakers will omit these when speaking Mandarin. For instance, 如果 might be pronounced as 如果。
如果我如果能够，如果
Pronouncing 很多 as 很多。
觉得哭有很多不同的方法，很多。
Pronouncing 方面 as 方面。
語言是方面的，
一點點 sounds like 一點點。
略懂一點點的，一點點的。
我覺得有一點點，
有一點點啊，
有一點點，
有一點點啊。
The next one is pronouncing O like ow. Sometimes Cantonese speakers pronounce the Mandarin O like ow. I've read that it's probably because many Mandarin words with the O sound are pronounced with ow in Cantonese. I'm not so sure, so if you're a Cantonese speaker, please let me know your thoughts in the comments. Here are some examples of this characteristic. 有空 might be pronounced as 有空。
有空的時候，我有空。
還有 like 還有。
還有就是一個幾好的，就是還有就是一個
時候 like 時候。
有空的時候，我
有 like 有。
同樣多的有啦。
If you want to learn how to pronounce and differentiate these two sounds, I have a video that teaches compound finals. You can find it through the link in the description. The last one about final is putting too much emphasis on certain sounds. When pronouncing the Mandarin ow, Cantonese speakers tend to open their mouth bigger for the ah sound and also pronounce it a little bit longer. For instance, 知道 would be pronounced as 知道. The ah sound is more obvious.
我都知道我對，
不好 sounds like 不好。
都跟他一樣，長得不好啊，長得不好啊。
Cantonese speakers also often pronounce the Mandarin n and at the end of a word stronger and longer. For example, 听 sounds like 听. The at the end is stronger and longer.
給你們聽好嗎？
玩 sounds like 玩。
他們在家的時候跟一個爸爸媽媽一起去玩，
你應該去玩一下嘛，聖誕節。去玩一下嘛，聖。
Now let's move on to one of the most important aspects in Mandarin, tones. Even though Cantonese has 9 different tones, Mandarin tones are still different from Cantonese ones. So when speaking Mandarin, Cantonese speakers can still pronounce some of the tones incorrectly. Here are 2 common features. Pronouncing the fourth tone similar to the first tone. In Cantonese, there isn't any tone that drops down as much as the fourth tone in Mandarin. So when Cantonese speakers pronounce the fourth tone, they usually don't drop the sound low enough, therefore sounding like the first tone, which is a high tone. For example, 现在 might be pronounced as 现在。
我现在在努力学，现在在
Pronouncing 快乐 as 快乐。
新年快乐，新年快乐。
Pronouncing 菜 as 菜。
教一个小朋友煮菜。
Another common feature in tones is not following the tone change rule for yi and bu. Yi and bu in Mandarin often change their tones when they link with other characters. For example, 一定 一定. Because of the tone change rule, the yi should be pronounced as yi instead of yi, but some Cantonese speakers might pronounce it as 一定一定.
我觉得哭不是一定要
When bu is placed before a fourth tone character, it becomes the second tone, which is a rising tone. But Cantonese speakers might still pronounce bu as the fourth tone in this case. For instance, 不是 might be pronounced as 不是 or 不是.
不是就是鱼。不是就是鱼。
Another one, 不会 might be pronounced as 不会。
全身的部位啦，你要拍全身的部位。
部位啊，部位拍。
不会拍，不会拍。
If you'd like to learn more about the tone change rules in Mandarin, click here or find the link in the description below. Alright, that's all for today's video. If you're interested in learning more about different Mandarin accents, I have several videos on this topic. You can find them through the links in the description below. And also, if you'd like me to analyze some other Mandarin accents, feel free to give me some suggestions in the comments below. 那如果你喜欢今天的影片，别忘记按赞、订阅和分享哦。And last but not least, if you'd like to learn some daily Mandarin expressions, check out my Instagram, Grace Mandarin. 那我们就下次见喽，拜拜。